Well, first big shakeup in the 2026 recruiting class. Big news. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about your calls coming up next. Kind of funny because about a month ago, we teased the idea of having this Notre Dame show. And I'm not kidding you guys. Roll the tape back to about a month ago. Jamal and I were saying, let's talk about this series. Let's see if this is going to continue. And we talk about pushing back. And it just seems like we keep pushing it back because the news keeps on hitting. Xavier Griffin, 5-star from Florida, becomes second decommit in the week. But the big name, we lost Kohen Brown earlier, wide receiver from Texas. But losing the 5-star, newly anointed 5-star linebacker from Florida was a big hit. He committed last summer to the old regime. But it looks like the new regime has a new policy in place. Jamal, first off, how you doing tonight? And then let's talk about a little bit of this new shakeup on the recruiting class.
Doing well, Tim. It's going to be a fun conversation here. It's this is the first time we're on this side of it, this offseason. So going to be excited to kind of get into it, and also a couple other commits over the course of the last few days. So not all doom and gloom, but excited to jump into it with you.
Yeah, so we had the decommitments, but we also had the commitments, and we will talk about them next as well. But listen, you guys, thank you all. We've had great support here over the past couple of weeks. A lot has been on on X, our X accounts, but we are going to have this thing rolling every Wednesday through the offseason and into the season. So get in, be strong. Make sure that you guys are hitting that like button and subscribing. I do plan on, and I don't know how it's going to work it out, but there's going to be another show coming on the channel that I'm going to be running. Make sure you're subscribed because it's going to be a little more often. It's going to be where we pop in some news stories. And as always, you have Ryan Dyrud here. As soon as this news hit, he was on right away reporting on LAFB about this big shakeup. So Xavier Griffin, it looks like that there is going to be a policy. And we've heard it going back a little ways now, how guys are shutting down the recruitment. And we're hearing that messaging coming out of the program. Obviously, that's coming probably from pretty high up top. USC, if you guys remember last year, had the big splash. We were talking about Cyber when Coach Henny came in. You had Justice Terry and you had Isaiah Gibson, and later on that Hayden Lowe. These guys, now imagine all three of these guys being sophomore coming in this year. There's some high level recruits that USC kind of was got early on in the process and was not able to hold on to them. There is, except for Hayden Lowe, the first two, there is kind of a combination that you're talking about, Jamal, where you have these out-of-state recruits, you get them early, and you put a target on your back.
No, absolutely, Tim. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it, right? I mean, there's perhaps a little bit of PTSD from last year, to your point, with what happened with Justice Terry and what happened with Isaiah Gibson and, kind of Georgia born and bred kids who kind of wanted to go back closer to home. Xavier Griffin, again, Southeastern kid. Look, I think this is sort of par for the course. Does it hurt that he was arguably the top ranked recruit of this, decorated 2026 class? Absolutely. I think anyone who doesn't think it hurts, maybe in a little bit of denial. But I think what's important to understand here, Tim, is it's sort of part of the larger strategy. I mean, the reason Chad Bowden and staff are recruiting 35 guys, and that's been the number, and they're continuing to sort of reach on pace for that number, is they're expecting a third of attrition. I mean, they're expecting 12 or 13 decommits here, and that they're going to end up with a class of, 22, 23, perhaps 25. So they're building this into the model. To expect that kids aren't going to be flipping around back and forth, I think is unreasonable. And that's why the recruiting strategy has been such a good one, aiming to get to 35 kids. What's crazy, Tim, is we're still so early in this cycle. I mean, we're just in May and, signing day is in December. I mean, my God, for kids this age, 7 months is still such an eternity. And given kind of the 24/7 nature of this, you have to kind of recognize and honor that some of the powers in the Midwest, some of the powers in the South, they're not just going to lie down, not just for Xavier Griffin, but for other elite prospects that USC has already acquired. And it goes in both directions. So obviously so much of the conversation has been dominated this offseason about 2026 recruiting, and rightfully so. But I think sometimes we over-index, we overreact to the gets, and we also sort of overreact to the losses. I think this is sort of par for the course. And I think, look, it's not a hot take. More decommits are coming. It's just sort of the nature of the beast that we're in college football today. Having said that, I think there's going to be an opportunity to sort of fill that linebacker bucket. You know, you can argue it's already been filled to a certain extent with another Mr. Sean Scott, coming over and, homegrown from Mater Dei. So I think this is sort of par for the course. I think we're so used to the inputs, haven't had one go the other direction. So it's a little bit jarring, but I think it's par for the course.
Yeah. I love how you said the fact that people overreact. And that's what it's, hey, look, it's recruiting. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. If you're living and dying by recruiting, I hope you've got a really good therapist, because I mean, I've been doing this for probably going back to early 2000s. I remember on Ryan's original site before Rivals, Ryan Abraham, not Ryan Dyrud, his original site before we got Rivals, before there was 24/7. It just had a small little, and had the USC Football.com in the background, and like nerds like me, we were up all night the night before to say, okay, so what's going on? What's the latest we've heard, and really enjoying it. And if you have that fun with it, then you're doing it right. If you are losing your crap, kicking your cat, screaming at your neighbor because a 17-year-old or 18-year-old feels like they'd have a better opportunity somewhere else, then I mean, did you pick a college when you were young? Did you pick a career when you were younger? I mean, this stuff happens. Opportunities happen. You have a feeling about something changes. It looks like he's going to be visiting, let's see, Florida State,
Florida, I believe.
Florida,
Oregon.
Alabama, and Ohio State, Oregon too.
That's what I thought, but yeah, no, I think that's the list.
He's probably going to go to a lot of those places. It was a mutual move. I think it's, he wants to take those visits. USC does not want him to take those visits. They're going to be balancing, this is now a business. It is a front office. There is no real cap, but there is a ballpark, I guess you'd want to call it, budget for what they want to do probably within this recruiting class. And so when things begin to change, and they are going to change, and as you said, Jamal, people are going to come at some of this great recruiting class that we have. Although I'd argue with you, because Kenai Pepe, for a million different reasons, I think is by far the absolute number one gem of this class. That is not putting anyone else down. I say that because there's been such a drought at having that can't miss measurable and skills and ability and physicality of a guy like Kenai Pepe that, that's why I have him at the top. This is a massive loss. I mean, Xavier Griffin is an exceptional guy, but I really like linebackers. And I'll tell you what, Talanoa Ely, if you come on down, that's going to take a big sting off the Trojan family. And I think that's inevitable to happen. So huge loss, great family, really, great people. But I wish him and his family the best. And just, that's the way you got to take, guys. This is the new NIL era. This is the new, they have to. I mean, for the people out there also that are saying that, a commitment's a commitment and this and that and blah, blah. Look, if it was your child and you're talking about the kind of money, and believe me, this is going to be some real money, for you to say that you don't understand it, a commitment, you're not being honest. Come on, So I wish him the best. I wish all these commits the best. I love college football, but I love young people getting their fair market share, and I hope he does well. No,
that was really well said, Tim. And I think just to sort of double click on the policy, right? I mean, you alluded to sort of this new policy where I think the Chad Bowden front office has essentially said, look, if you're going to commit to USC, then we want you to shut off all of the other visits after that. It's like once you're in, you're sort of all in. And I think it makes sense on both sides, because from a USC perspective, you want to be able to limit the exposure that these kids have the moment right after they've committed to USC, because you're driving down risk. And so you're putting yourself in a position of power and a position of leverage in a very strategically mindful way. So it makes a lot of sense there. On the flip side, you still can't help people reaching out to you if you're an elite prospect, via Twitter, via phone, via text, via Instagram, through other people, third parties. So if there's something compelling that those individuals are going to say, and to be sitting here in May, 7 months from, signing day, and say, man, I'm shutting it all down and I'm completely sure, that's also a very difficult proposition too. So I get it from both sides. USC is absolutely in the right to sort of try and limit that. But I think they're also acknowledging that in some cases it'll work for particularly those California kids that are homegrown, where USC is the dream school and there's really no other second choice out there. But for kids that maybe they don't feel that way from California or from another state, then, you got to sort of assume that it would be really hard, particularly with all this money being thrown around, how they're treated like royalty on these visits, all the swag, all the importance, all the introductions to celebrities and important people and folks that can kind of get them off the ground from a branding perspective. Really hard to be able to say no to all of that when you're 17, 18 years old, Tim, to your point. And I think that's why you're picking 35 this year. If you felt 100% sure that you were going to keep all 100% of those players, you probably wouldn't be going as high as 35. Maybe, probably not. I think you're going with 35 really with that intent of saying, hey, look, the reality of this situation is, given how much of a free market this is, we're going to lose 12 or 13. It's just going to be the nature of the beast. But what we're going to be left with is not just 23 really, really good kids, but we're going to have 23 really, really good kids that want to be here, that want to anchor at USC and sort of want to build that culture.
I think also the scholarship limits have changed as well. So, I mean, I think it is a good strategy for sure. There's no denying what you're saying, but also you can take the flyer on those guys. You can get these guys, especially with linemen. We know how it is with linemen. I just said about Kenai Pepe. I'm very certain on that one. But nothing, especially when it comes up, I think linemen and projecting guys who maybe come in like those tight end type guys, the guys are like 6'7", but they weigh about 280, right? I mean, you can take flyers on those guys, bring them on in, see how they can develop, or vice versa. You got a big guy, maybe needs to shed some weight, etc. We'll see how he moves. You can take those chances on those players, but I think there's the truth there is somewhere in between. And yeah, we're fooling ourselves if we think that the recruiting class that we have right now is going to stand. I mean, we're down to 27 recruits in May, which is amazing still. But there is going to be some shakeup. It's just going to be the nature of the beast. So I've been saying this for years. Don't get attached to a recruiting class. I mean, are you new? I mean, wow, look, this stuff happens no matter what, NIL, no NIL. And I like the analogy it's used so often about the dating, the commitment thing. Everyone says all the time. But hell, it's like this is worse than some Hollywood marriages, because even when you do get married, even when the guy comes in and I don't know, let's say plays spring ball and then decides to go across town to your rival after spring practice after they sign their letter of intent. I mean, all these words now, that these papers, these promises, that's really they're really almost quite worthless the way you can move rosters. And quite frankly, it's kind of a good thing. I think pretty soon they're going to put some guardrails on it. But for too long, it was stacked against the player. And a lot of players got stuck in some really bad positions. It killed me every year. These guys are stuck in a scholarship, but their coaches could leave at any minute. They sign, they want to play for a position coach. And then he leaves to take a head coaching job or a coordinator job somewhere else. The kid can't just get up and leave, Yep, and so exactly. now this is it's really good. It's kind of swinging. It's swung just like anything in life, you guys. Politics, whatever. If stuff swings way too far, right or left, eventually it's not going to stop right back at center. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like that. It's not the Dow, right? It's going to go one way. It's going to fly right past. It's not going to stop right in the middle. So find that sweet spot, hopefully, but it will never stay there.
No, it's a really good point, Tim. And I think the dating analogy, to your point, because we've heard it a lot, and I think there's sort of a difference between dating and having gone on a few dates. And I actually think that the commitment today, in this sort of NIL era of like, oh, I'm committing to a particular school, is sort of an acknowledgement that you went on a couple of dates, not necessarily that you're dating. And so in a lot of ways, there's sort of that optionality, right? I mean, even in a relationship, if you really like the person and you've gone on a couple of dates and then that person says, hey, do you want to be in a relationship? If you really like the person, you're going to be really excited. Just like in this particular case, like if USC was your dream school and, Chad Bowden comes and says, look, you got to shut down your recruiting, you're going to be very excited to do that. But if, you're with someone that you may not be as excited about and you've gone on a couple of dates and then they say, hey, do you want to be in a relationship? You're going to be like, maybe, I don't know, and so that's really what's happening here. It's a couple of dates. And in a lot of ways, I think it's a really positive thing that USC is doing because it's testing the commitment. It's testing the love in many ways. And it's self-correcting. The guys that are kind of on the fence, you're kind of like, well, look, the chances of you perhaps transferring, not today, not tomorrow, but maybe 6 months from now, next season, perhaps beyond, would be very, very high. So let's try and filter that out from here and now. But grand scheme of things, 27 recruits, 16 of which in California. Tim, I agree with you. Pepe is the crown jewel here. Not a ton to worry about moving forward. It stings. I think this only becomes an issue if you lose a couple of other marquee guys at the top of the class. If it's just one or two, it's an anomaly in just sort of the nature of the beast. It only becomes an issue if it starts becoming a little systemic, which I don't anticipate it becoming.
No, and the two guys that have left, one was a guy that recently we picked up, and the other one was one of the long-standing out of state. I mean, even Pete Carroll had trouble with the out of state guys. So it is what it is. And losing Xavier Griffin and Kohen Brown, we will lose more. There's no doubt about that. But it's better to find out now than to have. Look at last year's class and the mess it was. There was guys early on that ended up decommitting pretty early. And then you had the Julian Lewis saga, and which, by the way, if you haven't checked out Ryan Dyrud's video he put out here on LAFB earlier today, make sure you go check that out. He goes into a little bit of detail. I don't want to repeat what he said, but basically, you had Julian Lewis going on 587,000 visits. You look at this stuff, and you need to make a decision. You don't want to let the recruits run your recruiting class. They built a culture. These guys are close. The guys that have decommitted are the guys that out of state guys. The California guys, here I'm talking about Kenai Pepe. He has ties to the Southern California area, even though he was playing at IMG. And the majority of our guys, like if I'm talking about him, just an insane secondary class that we have. Those guys are all Southern California. They're all close and growing. So let's just keep in mind that this is a new thing. It's a policy. I don't know how strict it is. Other guys are going to want to take those visits. It's going to happen. And how does that happen? How does it shake out? It could be just like you guys, Jamal. I mean, the future of this was just going to be, there's always handlers, feelers, there's coaches, there's a 7-on-7 there's all these people that can have these conversations, agents, etc. I don't know how it goes as far as that, but just shutting down the visits isn't going to close the door for everything as well. So just keep that in mind. Sorry, I got to turn the AC on. Give me 1 second, Jamal. I'll be right back.
No worries. It's getting hot in here, Tim. Oh my goodness. But as soon as Tim gets back, I think it's gonna be exciting to now talk about who we have gotten over the last couple of days, and Sean Scott being Exhibit A here, and again, linebacker, 4-star for Mater Dei. Talks so much about USC making him feel like a top guy, right, Tim? When it comes to Sean Scott, you feeling fresh, Tim? You feeling good with the air?
It's gonna kick on. It takes forever. It's an old AC, but yeah, it'll kick on in a minute.
No, Tim, I was just sharing, Sean Scott, we can sort of segue to the positive here, and particularly at the linebacker position, 4-star Mater Dei, really said that, USC made him feel like a top guy, really prioritized. And I just think his size and his ability is sort of ideally suited for a Danton Lynn system. And so I think lots to be excited about there.
Yeah, and just to continue that pipeline for Mater Dei, which we used to take for granted back, a couple of years ago, kind of dried up. You would see a lot of the guys that normally you would say, "Oh, that's a Trojan." Mater Dei, he's going to come to SC, and then guys would make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. But now you have a situation where you have Rob Ryan. I was able to see him play. I saw Scott back in January, I think, when they did the All 22,
And he was out there, and then the coaches were giving him a hard time, but he's very coachable. First off, that's what really jumped off the bat to me. They were kind of messing with him, like with false starts and faking the count stuff. But he was genuinely smiling about it. I got a good picture of him. I put it up. He just seems like a kid that's really coachable. He's got that size too, and he moves so well for a big guy. There's a lot of question marks where he's going to play. People have been reporting on about the fact that he's definitely not going to be a rush end as he is. I think Mark Holcomb was one of the first person I heard talking about the fact that he's going to be playing. He's going to play. He's not going to be up on the lines play, but he will play like a linebacker position. So the rush, although I have him as an end in the 247 and the other recruiting sites. I don't know if they switched it yet. USC, from reports I've heard, is going to be a linebacker.
Yeah, no, Tim, I think it that makes a ton of sense. Look, obviously the measurables, there's variability there from time to time, but he's listed at between 6'1" and 6'2", 6'1.5". We'll split the difference there, around 235. So that's a very unique body type, in a lot of ways, for kind of a linebacker position. And I think just given the Lynn scheme, you can sort of slide him down, not necessarily as a traditional edge, but on a particular package in a particular kind of sequence of plays. You can sort of drop him down, bring that rush edge pressure. You can sort of slide him back into a traditional linebacker. You can sort of, send him back into the secondary as well. All elements of the D'Anton Lynn scheme where he really, he sees a very blurred line between linebacker, edge rush, and then even sort of dropping back. And I think Sean Scott really fills that versatility mode, to your point.
Yeah, and so we'd be remiss though if we move on and not talk about the other linebacker commit. So USC out of the blue, and I gotta say, I know we talked about earlier having the larger class as such, but this one came really out of the blue because we're kind of looking at, okay, so we're all banking on, and with Talanoa Ely down the road, and they all are slightly different linebackers, but the fact that they're able to land Taylor Johnson on top of it is quite a coup as well. The film on this guy, he came out of the blue. I'll tell you, I didn't know a whole lot about him until I started looking at it, but the more and more I see about him, he does move well. Again, another guy that USC's. It should have been something, Jamal, I'm not kidding you. I had a little thought in my head, and it's funny because Xavier Griffin's mom actually did like something I tweeted. I can't remember what it was, about one of the linebackers, and she liked it. And I went right to the screen, and on her banner, it had like a big red elephant. I'm like, oh crap, wait, is Alabama? I thought for a second, but it got thinking in my head. I started thinking about the fact that, he's a long time commit. He's out of state. People, I'm not the first one. People have been in the national media have been saying, oh, he's not going to stick. He's not going to stick. That's an easy guess to make. But when we got another linebacker, that also made me start thinking to myself that, how solid they feel they do have with the current linebacker. So, I mean, it is what it is. Pulling a guy out again who looks like he can really hit, looks pretty damn violent, can move well, and it looks like you're a guy that's going to be able to fit in that middle linebacker position.
Totally, Tim. I mean, that middle linebacker position, indeed. I think the word violent is so appropriate here. I think what jumped out to me, Tim, is 174 tackles. I mean, in one season in high school. I mean, that is an incredible number. I mean, you're depending on the number of high school games you're playing, you're talking about 14 to 16 tackles a game. And so just those instincts for how plays develop, the discipline to stay at home when it comes to things like misdirection, the ability to sort of read and react pre-snap, all of those elements, I think, Tim, are really, really critical here. And you can never undersell sort of productivity. And, when a guy is putting up numbers of that particular rate, there's a knack for the ball. There's just instincts there. There's a football acumen that you have to take very, very seriously. The thing about measurables, the thing about upside, so much of it is potential. So much of it is contextual. But when you have a player who's saying, hey, I had 174 tackles last year, 9 tackles for loss from the linebacker position, was all over the field, that's something that you can sort of carry over. And that's also kind of what I like, not just about this linebacker class, Tim, but just overall. I think there's just such a nice mix of your top end, ESPN 300 guys, so to speak. What we're sitting at 12 ESPN 300 guys, I believe, is the number right now. And then, you're sort of rounding out the class with guys that maybe didn't have that level of sort of decoration, if you will, and hype, but guys that have really produced and performed, perhaps may even be underrated, understarred, if you will. So I think that combination of a class, I think, is also what's really strong. Because if you just bring all the blue chippers, you're going to have a little bit of a culture challenge, because everyone's going to expect to play. They're expecting to be stars. They're expecting to eat, because that's sort of how life has been in their football career to this point. But I think having that mix of guys that, are decorated, guys that are flying a little bit under the radar, guys that are a little bit more vocal from a personality standpoint, guys that are a little more subdued. I think when you look at this class from a number of different lenses, you see there's a lot of balance and a lot of depth. And I think that's ultimately what we're excited about.
Yeah, we have a lot of royalty in the chat tonight. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I say it all the time. If you guys have been watching the show for a long time, Gerard Martinez works over at 24/7. He does the whole brick and mortar analogy. If you guys aren't watching, they have a pretty good podcast he's had for years. He's a recruiting guy. And he says you need that mix of the brick and the mortar guys, right? So those brick guys are your 5 and 4 stars, but you also need those mortar guys to hold the thing together. And again, the guy you're going to have for 3, 4, 5 years possibly in your program, those are the guys you want to build, not just having the competition, but also building that culture and having that continuity within the program. You got guys that come in with the hard hats, right? The guys that have a chip on their shoulder, whatever it is. Throw your cliche in there. You need those dudes. And we're not, by the way, just because I say this all the time, the guys that they call busts that come in with 5 stars and they don't really pan out, they didn't give themselves 5 stars. Other way around as well. These guys that come in unheralded with 3 stars, but they have 170 tackles, like you said, 150 plus tackles. I mean, it's hard to throw a star on someone that has that kind of production. So let's let it shake out. Let's let them play. Let's let Rob Ryan kind of mold these guys and see what comes out. We got our first call. Jamal, you ready? You ready for this one?
Let's do it, my friend.
All right. Hi, caller. You're on with Jamal and Tim. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller, we got you. You there?
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
We got you. How you doing? Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Tim, it's your buddy Dan. What's going on, man?
Dan, nice to talk to you. What's going on? What's your thoughts?
Hey, USC is looking pretty fresh with Lincoln Riley and all, man. The coaching staff is looking good. I like what they're doing over there at Southern Cal with the football room, but especially in the defensive side of the locker room, I'm really impressed with the guys, stepping up, and especially the young guys coming in with a lot of, energy in that locker room. So I give them credit, because that's the most important part of USC's team is their defense. That's the one side of the football team I've been looking at in the last couple of months, just like saying, it's an impressive room of recruits that they got coming in, and, I feel like these guys are going to be making big major moments at Southern Cal. So that's kind of my thought and my 2 cents. And I wanted to get your thoughts on something I discussed with you. I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I mentioned a rumor about Troy Polamalu's 2 sons in the 2028-2029 class.
Yes, you did.
Be coming to USC.
Now I remember. Yeah. Do you have an update on that? Because I don't have anything for you. I'm sorry, I don't. But do you have an update on that?
I've been following along on social media with Troy Polamalu's 2 sons, and they've been saying about they want to go to Southern Cal, but it's just they aren't sure about if Southern Cal is going to But here's my 2 cents. I know Southern Cal will give them a 100% full ride, not just because they're Troy Polamalu's, 2 boys. I feel like if they get the ride to Southern Cal and they add up the defensive roster at Southern Cal, Southern Cal's going to be a powerhouse on defense. They just got to get the guys in, that really help set the tone. Guys that can bring, that kind of like Patrick Willis energy into the Southern Cal locker room. Like that Ray Lewis mentality into the locker room. So that's kind of the thing I have about that I'm really liking about that locker room, especially with the new strength and conditioning coach. I feel like that's really a boost. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents coming from me. But, I mean, what do you think?
That's a lot there, Jamal. Do you want to pick one of those things out and make a comment for Dan here?
Yeah, I think, Dan, great insights. I think there's a couple of things there. One, always excited to hear about kind of the lineage and the legacy, right? And that's really how, so much of the passion for the Trojan family kind of comes from. There's sort of a lineage and a legacy. And we've seen that not just in football, but other aspects of the university as well. The one thing I'll say is 2029 is a long way off, particularly in this era of college football. 4 months is a long time. When we think about it,
yeah.
It's been 5 months since Chad Bowden got the job. And that probably felt like 5 years in terms of just the amount of activity. So to say, hey, 2029, something may happen, it's a ways off. And so much can change also in terms of the coaching staff and in terms of just the dynamics of college football. Will there be a salary cap? Will there even be an NCAA 4 years from now for college football? So I think it's fun to sort of think about and be excited about, but, to kind of some of Tim's earlier points, you don't want to necessarily sort of bank on it per se. And then I think the culture piece is huge that you talked about in the locker room. I think we're seeing it. I think we're seeing it on the offensive line with Reed in particular. We talked about kind of that center position and the importance of being vocal and being a leader and what an impact that makes, particularly if you've got kind of some softer spoken guys in some key positions, a la quarterback and other places. So couldn't agree with you more on that culture piece. And I think that's going to be the fun part is now there's a little bit of a dark period from now until kind of August and fall camp. I think this is where the culture is going to set in behind closed doors, in the weight room, with the camaraderie, with all the various kind of team activities that the outside world is most likely not aware of. This is where that culture kind of sets in. This is where you sort of figure out who are your emotional leaders, who are your vocal leaders, who leads by example. And I think so much of that is so important, particularly in times of adversity in a season. So I just wanted to kind of double click on your point about culture because it's huge. It's huge for any organization in any walk of life, particularly with the football program.
Hey, Dan. Thanks, man. Great call. Great call. Great points. But, we will keep an eye. We're going to keep an eye on that situation as far as the Polamalu thing, man. Really quickly.
There was another thing I heard about maybe in the last couple of days with another Hall of Famer, NFL legend, son coming to Southern Cal. If you could take a look into that.
Tell you what, you look at it for me. Give me a call back next week. We'll talk about that. Okay. Listen, I love it, but what like Jamal just said, 28, 29 recruits. Shoot, we're having trouble keeping the guy from a year ago that was out of state. So let's again, it's a great story. Anytime you could get Troy Polamalu. Listen, I think Troy Polamalu's fingernail could play football anywhere. So I mean, if his kids are looking this way and USC and is interested, I think it's they got to take a shot at that. So keep us posted, man. Appreciate your call. All right.
Thanks, man. We'll see you later.
All right. Okay. Well, so that's the weekly update on Troy Polamalu, but great points. I do like the fact that USC, well, how do I put it this way? When USC has a history of having star football players, it's kind of weird though, because it's funny. It just seems like a lot of them don't, but we have RJ Sermons. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember his dad, Ronnie Sermons, number 5. I still remember going to the end zone. Oh, what a great game that was. You have lineage that come to USC, but a lot of times it doesn't work out just because someone goes to a school, and sometimes really, I mean, let's face it, it's pretty tough to follow your dad's footsteps. Usually kids want to kind of carve their own path. This is a great point here by Debo, talking about the fact that he feels that the West Coast kids have a little more independence about traveling to other parts than the Southern kids.
I mean, we'll see. NIL is kind of changing that. That's all I'm going to say. You know, they used to stay home, but you know, money talks. So we'll see. I mean, I guess Texas is still kind of in the South, but I mean, when you lose people like Justice Terry, he didn't stay, you know, in Georgia. He went to Texas. So it's not like they're just sitting back. And I think it's a new age of recruiting. They're not just gonna sit back, go to Georgia, Alabama, you know, and stay at home in Tennessee. They're gonna branch out, and it is changing. And really quickly, I want to Preston, you guys, if you guys aren't check it out, Preston's Paradise's work as well. He's always been a great supporter of the show. Make sure you check him out. Thank you, Preston, for reminding me, because I am the worst promoter of this channel. You guys do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. We'll be here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Every day, Ryan Dyrud is giving you updates. And there's some rumors that we might be throwing out another show a little more often than once a week here on the LFB network at USC. So check it out. Let us know and give us a start. And also, some of you guys over on my Twitter, if you guys come on over here, help out the channel, I appreciate it. This is a YouTube show. We appreciate you being on no matter what platform you are. But we had a little over 300. We're about 300 right now. We really appreciate support on YouTube. So if you got a second, come over here and like the show. Appreciate you guys all being here. Well, I had that on the docket. We talked about Sean Scott. We talked about Taylor Johnson. We talked about the Xavier Griffin and the Kohen Brown decommits. Waiting for a phone call, but if we don't get one, I'm going with maybe we should start winding this thing down. It is the off season. Don't listen to people in white t-shirts that tell you there isn't an off season. There is an off season. It slows down, but we appreciate you guys being here, especially in the middle of May. You guys have plenty to do on a Wednesday night, but 300 of you guys are joining us to talk Trojan football. Again, we had our first Bruin call. Will called in last week, so that was awesome. You know, we have been trying to roll the tape back. Anyone try to say we're copycatting them? We want to talk about, we think that there's some smoke to all of this Notre Dame stuff that's going on. We will have that show for you guys next week. Bring a friend.
Say, Tim, what do you think? Next week is a good time.
We've been saying that for about a month now, but you know, it's a good problem to have, isn't it? Not the decommitments, but you getting guys like Sean Scott and Taylor Johnson, and every week just seems like, you know, we're picking up new guys. It's Tim, a good problem to have.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe
caller, hold on 1 second. We'll be right with you. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Jamal. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Tim, do you remember an off season that was as eventful as this one day in and day out? Because I'm kind of thinking back. Obviously, you know, Pete days, you know, definitely kind of 07, 08 felt that way. But, you know, that was sort of pre-social media in so many ways. I mean, it was pre-Twitter. You didn't kind of have this 24/7 news cycle the way you do now. Maybe in the recent past 5, 7, 8 years, do you remember an offseason that had this much action day over day? Like, we're talking about daily updates that we're making on this channel and on this network. You can't do daily updates if there isn't anything to talk about. There's something to talk about every day with this team. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, no, especially with recruiting. I mean, the bigger your name, the later you're going to commit, even before the NIL dollar started popping up. I mean, it was like almost unheard of, it felt like, didn't it? I mean, someone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were committing either in February or at the very earliest at the Army All-American game, right? You're not getting these top guys recruiting, committing in April and you know, and May. These commitments usually wait a little bit. I'm talking about for the hype. I mean, it was pretty insane when they hired Riley. I ain't gonna lie, that was. But for the weekly flow of stuff, I mean, you said it best. It felt like it's been 5 months. It feels like 5 years. Chad Bowden coming in and just lighting a fire under USC recruiting, just blowing away the competition. I'll go on record saying most of this sticks. Most of the people we have stick. But no, I don't remember it being an off season like this where it's every week we get a Christmas tree. I mean, it's even more than like Hanukkah. You know, it's like we're getting so many, like, not days of presents, we're getting weeks of presents all the time. So unless someone in the chat can pick a better example, I can't really think of anything. But give us a call. Let us know if you guys can think of a better off season as well. Hey, we got another call. You ready for it, Jamal?
Let's do it.
Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Tom. I couldn't let you guys go home so early. Sorry.
This close.
I wanted to try to set a theme or set history that it's been screwy years for USC. Carol Folt was a new chancellor or president, and she came in, and all of a sudden she had sexual assault victims, and she had the admission scandal, and then she inherited a 4-8 football team that everybody was passionate about. So her attentions were divided, and then Mike Bohm came in, and he provided us with Riley, which was exciting, but his tenure was interrupted by a lot of distraction. I know your buddy Matt Zemek was complaining about why did it take so long to get back on track, but I think it was all these combinations of things that USC was reeling from being burned by the sanctions, so they probably had Sarkeesian show up inebriated. He had to go, and I think Hayden wanted to show integrity, so he thought Helton was a trustworthy and forthright person, so he was. I think that's entered into his decision to hire him. Then there all of a sudden there's no athletic director. I remember months being passed when there was no athletic director. So you got a president who's got all these other things on her plate, and then you got no athletic person to make a decision, no structure for NIL. It was just delay for months and months of getting things back on track. But to their credit, every move they've made since that, getting the Anton Lynn, getting Jen Cohen, and then Riley was having to be an attorney. He was having to have to be a salesman. He was having to be PR. And also scout. Whereas maybe Oregon has Nike's corporation all behind them for years. So we kind of got bull rushed by a support structure on these Big Ten teams and the teams that the areas that have it football over everything else. So I think that USC now has caught up, and it may not come this year that all that buildup is going to pay dividends, but with this incoming 26 class, I think that's going to be the first indication. Riley even said after his first year, that first year it shouldn't have happened. Caleb Williams was a Houdini and just made up for so many deficiencies of that team. That 11-3 was a miracle. All those turnovers that they got. I think the years after it was more representative of the talent that they had for a long time. Rakes and Bear Bryant leaving the big hole in the middle that they were desperately trying to fill. I really am optimistic that it's going to get a lot better, a lot quick, and with the strength up front and the closeness of the games that these coaches were able to get out of the last year's teams, heroics of Gavin Meyer. I'm excited about this team, and I think the people that were saying why did it take that long? I think there's a lot of extra things outside the football program that caused the delay. But I'm pretty optimistic about the rest of the way.
I think
Does that history jive with what you guys remember?
Absolutely remember it. I mean, I've been saying it for a while. First, USC got sanctioned and those draconian, trumped up charges. Now we see what people get away with these days. God, it makes how they stitch USC up. It looks almost ridiculous at this point, and the guys get away with nothing. But then USC decided to self-sanction themselves. That's what really hurt USC. Those sanctions weren't just for a couple of years. That really did derail a lot of momentum. But I will tell you, and I said it back then, I got so much crap for it back then. Lane Kiffin did an insane. Lane Kiffin allowed USC to give the NCAA the biggest middle finger with a good start, but eventually that roster caught up to him. There wasn't much he could do. But even then, he still managed that season. There's not many programs that could have survived those sanctions the way USC did. And like you said, Sark had some demons that he was handling while he was here at USC. It's great. I mean, it's an amazing story that he's able to exercise those demons and get to where he is right now. But that didn't help USC back then, right? And then they just had mismanagement that followed that. So it's been self-sanctioned years for years. I've covered it pretty heavily on this show for years. And it's good to finally see that Lincoln Riley, well, more USC has decided that they want, when USC wants to win, this is what people don't like that aren't a USC fan. When USC really wants to win and the university is behind them, there's not much that can stop USC, in my opinion. If USC is not hurting itself, USC is a program that should be able to survive just on where they are, who they are, and their rich tradition. Unless, again, I can't remember the name of the movie. It's a hilarious movie, but where they're showing this the harness racing and the guys are digging their heels into the dirt while I can't remember the name of the movie. Some cheesy 80s movie, but they're like digging their heels into the ground to slow themselves down. If USC's not doing that, there's really nobody, and I am arrogant. I don't give a shit. I am arrogant. Nobody can stop us. We've proven it in history. Nobody has a higher ceiling except for like maybe an Alabama can talk with us, when they're on the top of their game, for the sustained success that USC has had in the past. And getting over the top. There's lots of teams that sit and bump up against the top a lot. They're always up there, Jamal. But there's very few that just take over a decade like USC has done a few times in its history.
No, I totally agree with that, Tim. And I think your comments are so spot on. I think, we can talk about the sanctions. I think the point in history that you're referring to is actually more salient. I think it's the non-football situation that happened with the university that was really critical. I mean, you made the reference to George Tyndall and the gynecologist issue, the varsity blues issue. The School of Social Work was getting sued. The School of Education was getting sued. I mean, there was a crisis at USC from an ethical perspective, from at a university level. And I think Folt had to sort of make a decision there, coming off of the demons that Sark had, to say, I just can't afford to have another scandal, because the whole sort of brand is burning down outside of football. I just need someone that's going to stay out of trouble. And, if we all sort of recall, what was kind of the hot name, that was floating around in the late 2010s, early 2020s, was Urban Meyer, if you recall. There was a lot of talk of like, would Urban Meyer become the coach of SC? And given the skeletons in his closet, with everything that USC has had to sort of go through, from a university and the ethics and all of that stuff, that would have been a total disaster. So I think your point is really spot on. Folt had to pick someone who was going to stay out of trouble. Clay Helton was the perfect individual. Look, we can talk about Clay Helton, the head coach, all we want, but really, really a terrific man, and a terrific person to sort of lead the program, if that's what you were looking for. If success was just, hey, let's stay out of trouble, then Clay Helton was actually the perfect coach for you. But the reality is that there's other expectations for USC football. So seems like we're on the other side of all of these scandals. Seems like we're now on the other side of some of these challenges. And so I think now we're in a position to really succeed.
Yeah.
His first year was an aberration. It shouldn't have happened. All those turnovers and Caleb Williams escaping impossible situations. But he even said after the season, he goes, "There's no way this roster is gonna be the standard, because he saw so many deficiencies coming from the South. His league, he knew that this wasn't, and you could see in the warm-ups, these kids were well-meaning and all, but they looked like they played rec football, when you saw them going through the drills.
I don't think they were that small, but yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. They could kick my butt, but but they weren't the level that you see now. But
hey, I got to push back a little.
Stewart driving
I got to push back a little bit. The reason why that team overachieved so much is that offensive line was a pretty damn good offensive line. One, do you guys remember that guy? It wasn't just Caleb. Remember that guy, Jordan Addison? He's pretty good. Playing pretty good in the league too, isn't he?
No doubt.
Right? You guys remember Tui Pelotu? Those interceptions, those turnovers didn't just happen. That guy was freaking destroying quarterbacks. I bet you they were having nightmares of Tuli coming right down their face, or from their backside and getting a strip sack constantly, So, I mean, having to get the ball out quick when that monster's coming at you, that's how you get those turnovers. So I'm with you, and that's what they did. And then and then Mekhi Blackman, remember him? He was pretty good too, shutting down one side of the field. So when you put those pieces together, I don't think it's that. Travis died. I could go on and on. There were dudes on that team.
There's a lot of highlights.
But I will say, I remember. Well, hang on. Give me a second, Tom. But I will say that there was no depth.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you lost that offensive line, we've had some good pieces on the offensive line, but we haven't had a unit on the offensive line since that first season. So that's why we've been struggling. And you brought up earlier in your conversation when you talked about the defensive interior and just they needed to add depth, and they ended up losing pieces last year. So it was no surprise. People go, well, I don't get it. Lincoln Ryan must be a bad coach. They keep losing close games at the end of games. Yeah, they have no depth on the defensive line. It doesn't take a genius to figure out you're probably not going to hang on to leads late in games if you don't have depth on the lines.
Yeah, and Tim, the only thing I'll add is, to the 2022 team, it was, to your point, it was top heavy. There were 4 to 6 really, really good players, and then there was a very significant drop off there. If you go from 6 to 7, 6 to 8, pretty significant drop off there. And yes, it was a very opportunistic team. That Oregon State game, I think we all remember. Chance Nolan had 5 interceptions in that game. That UCLA game went down to the wire. I mean, there were a number of games. Obviously, won some, lost some. But a lot of balls bouncing that team's way with some really good individual talent at the top end, but not quite, I think, the roster that would justify an 11-win team, to your point.
I just wanted to sort of, I think, set the timeline, and I think that we shouldn't have expected that one season. Maybe a couple more wins last year would have been nice, but the trajectory that he seems to be improving things. You were defending Lincoln Riley last week, and maybe I'm a bleeding heart, but I never want to. I always try to not see somebody get ushered out, and I didn't even want to get Hilton ushered out. So that's how bad I am. But
oh yeah, well,
I think he's really.
Tom,
improved.
don't ever admit that again.
He's really improved.
Just trying to help you out. Don't ever admit that, Tom.
Sorry. I just soft heart, I guess. But nonetheless, I think things are going to get a lot better, and the timeline is not as fast as a lot of people wanted, but I think it's on schedule.
Yeah, no, I think that I've been saying it, and I want to say it again before someone steals it from me, like they usually do on the show. They take little ideas. I'm going to say it. This last year reminded me a hell of a lot of 2001. Close games, defense, marked difference in the defense, playing tough, losing close games, never getting blown out, looking like you're in it. This year, I want to be say, hey, look, we're going to win the national championship. I'm not feeling that. I think this year's going to be much better. You're going to see much better line play. Sound familiar? Sounds like 2002. This feels like a 2002 season. We don't have a Carson Palmer to take us to the Orange Bowl,
But listen, let's not make any assumptions about Jada Mayava until we actually see it play. You know what I mean? I don't think it's fair to him. I don't think it's fair to the program or the team. Let's see what the jump he can make in the second year with Lincoln Riley, because Carson early on was quite a gunslinger himself. He did refine that a bit, but having a big quarterback like Jaden, is kind of similar to like having a Carson Palmer. I'm not saying he's having a Heisman Trophy season like Carson did, but I do think that the USC is going to make that jump this year and come up a bit short, because although the roster is greatly improved, although the coaching staff is insanely improved, I don't think it has at this point. We got a lot of young, unproven. A lot of these young, unproven step up. I might be singing a different tune 1 or 2 games into the season. Well, probably not that early because we don't play anybody, but early in the season, I might be changing my tune. So I do think that this probably isn't the year, but I know they're going to make waves. And I know just like that 2002 team, nobody in the country is going to want to play USC at the end of the year. And there's a phone number right here. And I know there's some people fuming right now because we don't have all USC fans. 888-997-4539. If you want to get a call in, you got to do it pretty quick here. Tom, Jamal, do you have any final comments for Tom?
No, I just really appreciate the call, Tom.
I like your show. I love your show, and I appreciate it. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. And yeah, I mean, it's to your point. It's this is going to be a big year. This is a big year for Lincoln Riley to kind of turn the tide. So we're all going to be, as Tim said, it's about having an open mind and letting it kind of settle on the field.
Good call, Tom. Appreciate it. Solid call. Sorry, I lost about 5 of you because I wasn't paying attention to the call queue. That's my bad. Great call, Tom. You just got me completely distracted going back down memory lane. That was a marathon call. I appreciate it. One of the suggestions I got, Jamal, in the email was the fact they said, hey, can we make the calls a little bit shorter? But here's what I'm trying to tell you guys. What differentiates this show from other shows is that we're not going to shortchange you. You want to call in? If you're going to take the time out of your Wednesday to give me a call, I'm going to let you start talking some craziness, which I do on occasion, but it's my show. But if you come here talking some craziness, then it'll probably be cut short a little bit. But I mean, I really appreciate, Dan and Tom calling in, bringing their Trojan fandom with them. And I absolutely do not want to stop short of honoring you guys for calling in. You guys are the show. We appreciate you guys all being here. One more time, you guys, I have 346, but unfortunately, most of you guys are on my Twitter. Gosh, if we get some of you guys over here to support the YouTube show, if you're enjoying it, please do, or drop Jamal and myself a follow. Let me do that. If you're over on X, go ahead and give us a follow. Appreciate everyone being here. We got another call, Jamal. How many more do you got in you?
I think maybe we make this the finale, Tim. What do you say?
All right, sounds good. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, boys. It's C.A. Finney from Orange County.
C.A., how you doing? Thanks for calling. You called back the first week, I think, didn't you? When I was over here, my first week?
Yeah, it was the first one. I had, I kind of likened the USC football program to the movie industry. And
that's right.
Also the Chad Bowden era for general managers taking over the head coaches as the going forward for college football.
I remember you.
I wanted to do just... I just want to do just 2 things quick. I know you guys got to probably go grind somewhere and get some food in you. But one thing, I wanted to put it out there since you did, Tim. I'm going to predict that USC will win the Big Ten this year. And the reason why I say that, it's not even a hot take. I think it's obvious to me. And I've been around a lot of successful people over the years in a lot of different industries. And the one thing that always comes true to me is for successful people is that you got to match, let's say, something to prove, if you will, with the actual horses. Over the years, since Riley got here, you didn't have the horses. And I think Coach Riley put down a marker that he quite couldn't deliver, calling LA the Mecca, saying that he's going to win in the first few years. I think he oversold stuff, and he was his own worst enemy. And I think he comes from a small market. And again, I've been to Norman, I've been to Massillon, Ohio, I've been to Ann Arbor, I've been all these places. I've worked with them, and I know the mindset. I've been to Texas, and Coach Riley's from a small town in Texas. And I think he wasn't quite ready to handle what USC really is. And USC is the blue blood. And when you work in an environment of all blue bloods, and in Hollywood it's all blue bloods, everybody's good. Talent is just assumed. What puts you over the top is you have to have something to prove, as I say. You have to bring it. And this is the year that I think is the most dangerous for the Big Ten, because USC is coming. They have the horses, they have the coaching staff, and think about the coaching staff. All of those gentlemen have something to prove. Every single one of those position coaches, every one of the coordinators, they've been here, they've done that. And the culture is right where we need it. It's right at the right time. So I think as much as everybody, over the last few years have been, maybe dogging, Coach Riley for, and some of it deservedly so, including his brisket. His brisket was not really good. And I can tell that from the pictures. But I think he got it. I think Coach Riley has shown that he's learned to be a Trojan, that he doesn't have to manage and coach this team like they're, like in a small town, like in Norman, or a small town like Ann Arbor, or a small town like South Bend, where every single day he is in the spotlight. In LA, he's not. He's not going to be in the spotlight until he creates a spotlight. And I think that's where he can relax. And I can see him relaxing, and he's really getting it. And he's allowing other people to help him, and he's listening, and he's growing. And that's the big thing I'm excited about Coach Riley. I'm actually thinking he's growing, and he's going to be even a better coach for it. And the program is coming back. So my second prediction outside winning the Big Ten this year is that I think Coach Riley is the one that's going to deliver us from the desert. He will bring the national championship. He may not be, the Coach McKay or the Coach Carroll. He may not be that. Maybe Coach Danton Lynn might be. But at this point, I think he will be the guy, for as much as people have been, bagging him on a national level, and even some of the Trojan family here. But irrespective, that's kind of my two hot takes. I think Coach Riley is the dude, and even though, from my last talk, I said, Chad Bowden was great, but I do think, you still got to put the numbers up, and you still got to play the game, and that's where Coach Riley comes, I think, in the forefront. I think he's a great coach. I think he has a great culture behind him. He has the horses. He has the Trojan family excited. And as they say, we're coming. And I don't think the Big Ten and the younger generations really are going to get a lesson of what Trojan family and the Trojan football, dominance really is. I'm excited about that. And you guys keep pumping the sunshine, because I'm a sunshine pumper. So fight on, guys.
I think we just won the national championship.
Yeah. Hey, listen, great call. Listen, CA, that's twice in a row you've come back with it. And great calls back to back. So much to unpack there. First off, I don't think your Big Ten is outrageous. I don't think I don't know. I'm not as optimistic as you are about it, because it's a long season. It's a big season. I as much as I'm trying to say, hey, let's give our quarterback play a chance, a lot happens on the court, on the shoulders of the quarterback. And if Jaden does not make that jump, I don't think that we have that ability. I really do like our offensive line. I think we can run the ball really well. And listen, Michigan's good playing a freshman quarterback. They lose that insane defense. Ohio State loses both of their coordinators. I don't think the Buckeye fans realize that they did not reload with their coordinators. From what they lost to what they got, I think that they're being sold a bill of goods. So, I think Ohio State is vulnerable. On Penn State, everyone's talking at Penn State. We played toe-to-toe with Penn State with a limited roster, a limited banged up roster. And we played toe-to-toe with them. Granted, we were at home, but we don't play them in the regular season. We don't play Ohio State in the regular season. So getting that championship is going to be pretty good, a pretty good run. In LA, you have to win championships, Jamal. That's what this town is about. And that's what the LAFB is all about. You have programs. You have organizations like the Dodgers and the Lakers and the other guys. But anyway, I can't say that, can I? I'm a Laker Dodger guy. So you have NBA teams here. You have the Kings who've won Stanley Cup, not very often, but they've won. They've been at the top of the mountain. So I want that point to be made that you do have to win here. And when Pete was here, people forget we didn't have two NFL teams here. We were the only football. Sorry, Jamal. we were the only football program. We were only a football team in town during those years, although they did beat us. But anyway, I will say that for the final point, Jamal, before I let you loose on this, I don't care if my coach can cook brisket. I just want him to win games. I liked your point about the fact that he is making those changes. I don't think that a lot of put on he was stubborn. He was this, he was that. Let's face it. A lot of these guys that get a lot of credit for being a great coach are in some pretty damn good programs with some established administrations that are 100% behind football. We kind of touched on this earlier. We were talking about the timeline going from the sanctions all the way up till Lincoln Riley. There's more to it than just a coach and the coach being stubborn. He has made some huge mistakes. I'm not going to rehash those because I'm kind of done with that. We're talking about what we're doing now. But he has shown that he can grow. And the man is only, 40? Is he 41 yet? He's 40? I don't know. But he's young. And he's not, by the way, these coaches these days, you guys, they don't coach till they're 65, 70 anymore. He is not going to coach his way into his grave. He's going to be here, wherever it is for X amount of years. And then he's going to leave probably when his kids are still fairly young and have a great life with his family. So don't count on that either. But your thoughts, Jamal, on a great call.
Great call. I think it's a really good point. I'll start with one with kind of Riley with something to prove. And that I agree with you completely. I think, the circumstances under which he came, you got to remember he was 5 years. I mean, he didn't even finish the 5th year at Oklahoma, right? I mean, first 3 years out of the chute, college football playoff, just missed it. The year after that, I mean, it was kind of a COVID season. And then it was that game, Oklahoma State, the Bedlam game. Everyone remembers Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma, and that allowed USC and Brandon Sosna and Mike Bowden to be able to kind of reach Lincoln Riley for the interview and go through the process. But the flip side is, had Oklahoma beaten Oklahoma State, not only would Lincoln Riley not be the coach at USC, but Oklahoma would have been in a position for yet another college football playoff appearance. And so, his first 3 years college football playoff appearance, and then to be courted the way he was courted by USC at the age of 36, 37 at that time with all the success. I think your point is a really good one that, he just hasn't faced adversity yet. He doesn't know how to handle it. He doesn't know what that looks like. And you just think once you sort of have success early, you think you're always going to have success, and you don't think you need to change, and you don't think you need to evolve and grow. And so I think these last couple of years definitely have been a learning process for him, and he's kind of gone through the learning curve. So completely agree there. I think in terms of the other point about winning the Big Ten, bold. I mean, I love the prediction. I think I'm with Tim. I don't quite see it yet, but hey, I think we both Tim and I would love to be wrong there. I think the one thing that SC's got going in their favor is schedule. When you look at that September schedule, I mean, that's a glorified preseason. When you talk about two FCS teams,
out time.
You're talking about Purdue that won one game last year, Michigan State at home. So they should be able to go 4-0 pretty easily. And then, you got that home game against Michigan. And I think to the earlier points, Michigan loses a lot. And for them to kind of come to the Coliseum. So 4-0, 5-0 is certainly in the cards. And I don't even necessarily think they got to play all that well to get to 4-0, 5-0. I think the question for me is going to be at Oregon, at Notre Dame. And I think there might be one trip up, somewhere, particularly on the road. I see this team more kind of a 9-3 team, given the schedule that they've got. And the question is going to be, is that going to be enough to get in? They're either going to be just in or just out of the college football playoff, because 9-3 is about that line. And then it kind of comes down to, strength of schedule, margin of victory, quality of wins, blah, blah, blah. Who have you beat? Who have they beat? Et cetera. The eye test. Et cetera, et cetera. So I see this as more of kind of a 9-3 team that's fringe, either barely in or barely out.
And how well those three teams that you lose to do in their seasons.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what you said, but I just want to clarify that. Yeah, I completely agree with you being barely in, barely out. That's the perfect way to put it. Get a count on. If you get those three losses, you need three teams that are, you need like an Illini team possibly on the road. You lose in a close game who has like a 10-2 season, regular season or something like that, right? You have that kind of. If you have a, I won't say their name.
go like, I don't know, 10 or 11-1. You lose a close game up in Autzen. Those kind of losses at 9-3 before this new 16 team thing. We could talk about that tomorrow or next week when we talk about it. You guys. I don't care. No matter what news comes out, we're going to talk about the Notre Dame stuff because it's been a month and we keep talking about it.
Please.
And it's going to be at least a 10 minutes. But I wanted to give it a whole segment. I thought, I honestly thought, Jamal, I thought these phones were going to light up with phone calls. I was expecting two things, which we haven't got yet on this channel. I used to get the haters, right? We're calling, I told you Lincoln Riley sucks. I thought we were getting those calls. I thought we were going to get the guys saying, that we have the doom and gloomers going, oh, this is it. We're going to lose all these guys, start naming names. And I thought we were going to get the guys that the Sunshine Pumpers saying, that's no problem. That guy sucks anyway. We're going to get someone better. I thought we were going to get all those guys. We didn't really get a lot of them. We actually got 3 amazing phone calls. Appreciate Dan, Tom, and CA from Orange County calling in. We are here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to get caught up on the chat, but I missed probably a heck of a lot of great comments. I want to hit a couple of these right here. Tim Nelson asked if he wanted to come back, would they take him back? He's referring to Xavier Griffin in a freaking heartbeat, right? They are. This guy is really good. I don't think there's hard feelings. I think I hope that our staff realizes, hey, look, this guy's making decisions. He's not quite sold, and I think they would want to say, hey, look, it's good that we find this out now, and we can part ways. But if he decided, hey, look, coach, I've rethought. Maybe I can't imagine tomorrow they'd say no.
No, I totally agree with you, Tim. I mean, when you recruit 35. Attrition's part of it. The day-to-day realities, and he's too talented. I mean, we've got 27 in the class. Maybe 2 other guys are as talented, Tim, to sort of our earlier point, kind of on paper. So this is at the very top end of that class. You take him back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that like without even blinking, that's going to happen. Comment here I started early on, but talking about Kohen. So he's talking about Taylor Johnson when he says the linebacker from Kohen. He's got great tape, but how do I say this? His production and the way he plays and his instincts are great, but come on, you've seen Griffin play. That guy has some physical skills that few guys have. That's why he's rated so high. It's not saying linebackers more than just being flashy. It's about being right. Look at guys throughout USC history that may not have been the most talented physically, but they were in the right place at the right time. The guys that were always around the ball. Like if you go back far, was it Ryan Knight? I always forget the running back and the linebacker, or like Matt Grudegood or something. The guys that may not have been like NFL bodies, but they just had a nose for the ball and they were always there. You guys in the chat, get me good because I know there's about a dozen I didn't even name. So his tape looks great, but come on, let's be better on that, you guys. Griffin's a great player, and he was a big part of this class. So, but we're gonna be fine. Again, you give me Talanoa Elite, that's gonna take a lot. I'll be doing a lot less drinking. I'll be a lot more happy at that point. So, and I do believe in my heart he's on the way. Is going to happen. Please make that happen. Please make that happen, Chad. All right. Anything else from you, Jamal?
Nah, Tim, another great one in the books, and we'll get to those pesky Irish next week. I have a feeling.
Yeah, we need to. We got almost 300 people on my Twitter. You guys out on Twitter. We are here on YouTube every Wednesday at 7. And please, if you've enjoyed the show at all, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Appreciate everyone being here. Maybe now 271. If you guys could next week make it over here to YouTube, we'd all really appreciate it. Maybe a couple phone calls too. Again, thanks again to Dan, Tom, and CA for the phone calls. This is your show. It's where we give you a voice. We will not as long as we talk nonsense, we will let you talk ball all night long. All right. So for Jamal, this is Tim. We'll see you guys all next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Fight on, you guys.